Trust me.
So it says no mature content allowed before 10 p.m., which means none of us can say what we're really thinking right now. There we go.
In England, it is.
I always bring my own
You weren't
everywhere.
at the 10 o'clock recording of the new media show. We're at Podcast Movement. We had 500 people, and when we came
Humble
here,
brag. No big deal.
No, it was bad.
Yeah.
He's just doing it to rub it in.
It was bad.
500 people. It was such a bad turnout.
No, I'm talking about a different event.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at a different event, and then we did
Is
it
there?
here. And it was
Oh,
No,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
for the Elton John Queen sing-along next door.
Right.
Oh, snap.
I mean,
Right.
y'all
Are you
legends.
serious?
That's what it was.
You're telling me there is a Queen sing-along in the
Elton
other
John.
room?
Right behind
It's
us.
gonna be entertaining.
So, what y'all want to do for the next hour? Because I want to go sing Queen. I mean, it's so busy right now. I don't know if I can help you out with that. No, if you do want to collect any of our trading cards, we do have them up here on the desk.
We do.
Quit making me. Oh, okay.
Ooh,
Okay.
Oh.
Is that
Yes.
what we're doing? We're just setting them out.
Yeah, and the other one.
Business cards too.
Oh, snap. Drop my whole stack.
This has now become a meet and greet. I like this more.
Do you have mine?
The first ones I got.
Oh. That was the easy one. Okay, gotcha.
All right, we've got a group walking in cooler than any of the panelists. This is not going to be good.
Three more done.
That's right. Oh, is there like a contest going on to collect? Oh.
They should have gave a prize like a free
I
trip
didn't know
to,
there was a
to
list.
Hawaii
I
or
wanna
something.
I mean,
play.
I've got whiskey.
For the
I'm
very
not allowed
first
to say
person.
we're giving it out, but
Nice.
I wish I'd seen this before.
Did they? Oh, oh God.
What?
I thought they had turned us off.
I thought so too.
So I was like, all right, and then oh no.
Hello.
I think.
Because he's been here 4 years, I've been here 1 year. The
Yeah.
stars are based on number of years. Yeah.
Are they? Seriously?
This guy's a
Five.
podcasting Hall of Famer, and I have more stars on my card than him.
Is that true?
No. It's not.
She hasn't been here 5 years.
Yeah, you
but
can
she's
just
got
take
5
'em.
stars.
Bravo.
I was going to say, I'm a
Quality.
5-star.
It's quality.
Yeah.
Hey, hey.
I mean, I've been to
I just
Dragon
can't
Con
get
You're
rid of
more
it.
than
equal
5
one
years
whole
ago.
Scotty
So-
and Todd
okay, all right,
Concord
all right, all right,
combined.
all right, all right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so you're
That makes sense.
Aha.
All right.
I have
Fair.
as much as you two.
Yeah.
We got
Why
like
do I have
3 minutes to
17
keep
stars
riffing.
then?
What you guys want to do?
She's a 5-star. Yeah. Good to say.
Because that was the first thing it was I posted on Facebook. Said, you got a 1-star review. I'm like, it's my first year.
Aw.
Aww.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Get home and you
So-
can put them on the spokes of your bike.
Because podcasters get freaked out on 1-star reviews.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Take one of these and just
It's
rub it on
actually
your
a big.
microphone.
It's a big controversy in the
Well,
podcasting
actually, it is
space
right
right
now.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Tell me about this.
Oh, it's big. We got competing podcasts that are or bad characters that are hiring people in some countries to go through and do 1-star reviews on podcasts they hate.
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
Competitive podcasts.
Competitive podcasts doing 1-star reviews in Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
And Apple's battling it, but it's ugly.
Why not pay them to give your show 5-star reviews?
Yeah.
Because why lift
I want to
yourself
be
up
new,
when you can
new
tear
and
down
noteworthy.
others?
Come on.
It's looking
Yeah.
at the glass half full.
And it started. We think we know who started it. We have a suspicion.
Oh my God! Wait, can you break the news right
no,
here?
no,
Okay.
it's well known. If you it doesn't take too much research, but
It's-
Joe
some-
Joe Rogan.
No.
we
I was-
know.
I was thinking Chris
No, don't
Hardwick.
say
It
that.
had to be. It had to be
Don't
Hardwick.
say that. That's not true. Joe doesn't need. Joe don't care about reviews.
Yeah. Joe.
No.
Joe doesn't need any help like that.
Can the party come in here? Wow.
Hey,
Oh,
there we
nobody
go.
was expecting the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Drama.
Just
That
queued
is
up the
awesome.
entire time.
Wow.
That's great.
Fantastic.
That's how we should start the session.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's silly. I can't say that again.
There's 1 minute till it actually starts. We could have been walking around in this time and getting water.
Exactly. Or we could have been listening to Elton John and
We
Kiki
could have been
D's.
walking around.
Anybody buy any good swag over at the vendor area? I spent way too much money today. The dice.
Oh, you're that guy. Okay.
I
Yeah.
Bada boom, bada bing.
I bought a whole bunch of steampunk stuff. Yeah.
I bought perfume by a gay professional wrestler.
Ah, I bet you that has a nice smell to it.
I think that takes the cake right there.
Yeah, I don't think you can beat that.
I can't
Right.
beat anything.
Wait,
but, you
that and a onesie for my baby. It was a very strange collaboration of things to
know,
got.
I was going to say,
We're at
I bought a
7.
lightsaber or a pop figure. No, that doesn't even come close.
No.
No.
Did
Everybody
you
does
get one
that.
of them lightsabers though? Those were like amazing.
Oh, they are amazing. No, I did not get one.
No, I don't have that much money.
No.
I'm a podcaster.
I'm a podcaster, exactly.
All right. 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Well, welcome everybody to pitch the digital media pros.
Woo, woo.
Guys, I know you're all hungover. You can give me more energy than that.
Woo, woo.
Yeah, there it is. So, this is not our show. This is your show where you get to come up and pitch us your show idea, and we're going to help you out. We've got amazing talent up here. We've got Hall of Famers, amazing creative individuals, and also these four. So,
Hey.
but I would like to go around and let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Rob Greenlee over there.
Hello, my name is Rob Greenlee. I work for Libsyn, a podcast hosting platform. I'm the vice president of content and partnerships for the company, and it's been around. It's been a podcast hosting platform since 2004. So we host about 64,000 podcasts. I also do a podcast with this gentleman right here called the New Media Show. We've been doing it for 7 years now, Todd. And that show talks all about the growth and the development of the podcasting space and the industry. So we talk about hot topics in the space. But I've been doing podcasting for a long time and work with a lot of different types of content creators to help them formulate their shows. So
My name is Jenna Garrett, and I co-host a weekly comics review and interview podcast called Panelology, and a Animorphs reread podcast called Minds at Yerk.
I didn't know that. I am so hyped to listen to that after this.
that's awesome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Cochran. I'm the CEO and founder of Blueberry Podcasting. Also been a podcaster since October of 2004. Do the show, New Media Show, with Rob and a couple of others, one called Podcast Insider. Then my own personal show, Geek News Central. Probably done over 2,000 different episodes over the past 15 years or so.
Hi. I am Scotty Moore. I do 4 different podcasts right now with the BS Network, and I'm going to probably start 3 more by the end of the year. I do way too much stuff, and I come up with way too many different ideas for podcasts, so pitch me ideas, and I'll steal them. Anyways.
Should we just call you Edison instead?
Yeah. Yes, Tesla?
Yeah, okay. There we go. My name is Mike Faber. I am the founder of the ESO Network. We've been around since 2012, and we have right now currently 25 shows on our network, and we are mainly all things geek. We talk about, different topics on each show. I personally am host of the Earth Station 1 podcast, and we've been doing that since April 2010. We're actually coming up on our 500th episode this November. And I also host the Earth Station Who podcast, and I'm also part of the Dragon Con Report, which is a monthly podcast leading up to Dragon Con. Basically, I've been podcasting since 2007 and have been loving it ever since, and always looking for new ideas and fresh ideas. And, I'm always wanting to do other podcasts, but my wife just usually goes, no.
I am the Rock Out of Podcasting, Charles McFall, and oddly enough, I've been podcasting in digital media since August of 2004. Can't believe I beat out Todd Cochran.
Ooh.
This is amazing. Are you sure you didn't start earlier than October of 2004?
not many did before October
Yeah.
2. Check your dates.
April, not that April, it was April of 2004.
So you started in what? August? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I started in September of 2004.
Yeah,
So-
and Brian Ibbett started in August, I want to say. So, I think you started earlier than that, Todd. I think you
Guys, I was
October
like
4th.
January 2004. What's
you
up
weren't
with
even born in 2004. Shut up, Scott. So I also founded the Giant Size Team Up Network, where we're all things fandom. We have shows from Toy Collection with a bunch of guys in Australia, all the way through just talking about the news of the week and everything in between. We are proud to have Botched D&D podcast on our network, and been doing Twitch and live. Well, I've been doing live, not as long as Todd. Now, Todd definitely has been doing live a whole lot longer than I have. But I've been doing live since about 2006, and Twitch, TV, and YouTube for the last couple years. So we've got a pretty good gamut of people here at the table.
Sure.
So, who's got ideas? Raise your hand, and we will throw to you the greatest invention known to mankind, the catch box.
If you don't want to catch it, we can walk it to you. And here's the thing: this is a good chance to talk out your ideas, get some inspiration. Just throw ideas. Rob, Todd, and I were in the back talking tonight, and this guy came through from last year who had pitched "What the Riff," and we just gave him some good feedback and some ideas. And he's been going strong for a year now.
I'm actually going to be on his podcast. In about
Are
2
you
weeks.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
Nice.
in addition to that, we had Radish who pitched
Yes.
last year, and they actually have a show this year in this room, like right after this. They were here last year as just fans like you guys, pitched their show to us, and then this year they got to come back. So even if you think, I've got a good idea, I don't need help, think of it this way. You've got a room full of people right here who would probably listen to your show. So if nothing else, it's free advertisement. It's free
Yeah.
real estate.
And
And really, there is no ridiculous idea.
no.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, Todd and Rob have gotten where they've gotten in their careers because all they really want to do is help people. And this is free access and time to just get some refinement and some good ideas. And so, yeah, who would like to talk out an idea first?
Wow.
All right.
Wow, I've got
Awesome.
3 hands. Cool.
So I've talked to some of you guys about the one that I've been trying to do with my son for a year or
Right, I
so now.
remember
I
that.
want to talk about that one, but I've got another one that I've been toying with. You know, we hear inspirational stories all the time, you know, from people, and it's usually in the news. It's an athlete or a celebrity or something, right? But and this is almost a question if you've heard of this before a pitch. I would like to start doing a podcast of interviewing just regular everyday people. Because we all have stories that shape us and have inspired us and or traumatized us in some way, and those stories never get out because they're just regular everyday people. And I've been a psychologist practicing for over 20 years, so I think I'd be pretty good at doing that. So almost like setting up at
I swear I'm paying attention, but
Yeah, I had no idea. We
they
had
are
no idea
killing
they were doing
Rocket
karaoke
Man in the
next
other
door,
room
so.
right now.
We're about to
You
break
know,
into
and I
the
mean,
thing of
even
Rocket
almost
Man.
like sitting at like a festival and just setting up a booth and having random people come and share their story and
Well, NPR actually does something very similar, StoryCorps.
right.
And I think it's a fantastic idea, you know, because everyone does have a story. We took my mother-in-law. She passed away when she was 85, and she had stories about when she first moved to Atlanta in 1962 from
Right.
Detroit. So it was she discovered, you know, she was like segregation. She walked right into the middle of, or she was able to see the Ku Klux Klan burning crosses in Stone Mountain, you know, from her house in North Druid Hills and everything. And the stories she was telling, that I think it's a fantastic idea.
So my question, because of things like StoryCorps, and I did research to try to find something that was kind of like what I was looking at, and I know StoryCorps is out there. Is it too copycat of things that are out
No.
there?
What
No.
what I
Well,
would
it depends
say,
on what
the
you
advice
do.
I
Yeah.
would give is find more of a niche, because it is a slightly common idea of interviewing people based on just their stories. But I've seen people who have like interviewed people who came from trauma and then flourished into becoming something else. Find what interests you the most and the kind of stories that you gravitate towards,
Right.
and make that your niche. and that will help you blow up more than just saying I interview random people. So get more specific is the advice I would give.
Yeah, that, and it's a good idea, but what I would really think about is optional formats on how you might present the content. Because at the end of the day, what you want to create is something that's compelling to the listener.
Right.
And there is a lot of conversational podcasts out there, and you may have an opportunity of presenting it maybe in a story type of format versus just a straight conversation.
Okay.
It just depends on how much you want to put into the production. I think your opportunity for this is to find kind of unique angles on your guests and kind of drill in on those things, and to get audiences connected to the concept opportunity of the program and your guest. Because one of the things that you're going to be challenged with as a host of this is that you may get lost in the conversation where your podcast fundamentally, people listen to podcasts because they have an affinity for the host, right? And this is the challenge that a lot of these conversational podcasts have is some hosts will just ask questions, and then the guest actually is the focus. But what you want to have is a conversation that links you with the guest if you're not going to do a storytelling type of format. So it can be a complex thing to walk, but I think it's a great idea, though.
I think one thing you have to also consider is setting. I interviewed a gal recently from Australia who was doing a show about, she basically called it recovery optional. And she has a separate place on her property where she brings her guests actually in, and it's more of it's cozy. They get comfortable, have a glass of wine, kind of break down a little bit, get comfortable, and then start the conversation about, what transpired or what the story was. So I think in this type of a genre, getting personal, because if we're over Skype and we're not especially if we're not doing video and we're not face to face and can't see each other, that human connection, being able to get deep, is really important on these types of shows. So I think the consideration should be is if you're in an area that has a high enough population base to pull people in the local area to bring in these stories that you're looking to, that is probably kind of key. And that's what I set her apart in her show. And again, there's a lot of these type of shows, but I think her setting was important.
Yeah. I saw someone similar at Podcast Movement, and her whole idea was it did allow her to get a more private, intimate conversation because she would lay down with them. She would set up a microphone above, like
in the
wherever.
biblical way, or
Well,
That's
not,
awesome.
not like
No.
that.
They just lay on the floor.
That would
and-
mess with the audio. I
Right,
think.
yeah, yeah.
But
They were dressed, don't worry.
yeah, you would lay down, because I actually was a guest on her show. My wife's watching. Well, nothing happened. But she would lay down with you, and then you would discuss stuff for like a while. So that was her interesting angle and interesting take on it, is the fact that the show is called Horizontal, because she would get horizontal with her guests, and then any picture or photo ops she took around the convention we were at, she would make sure to be horizontal. So it helped her with
Interesting.
yeah. So it also helped her with her branding to have this unique way of approaching everything. She literally had a completely different angle.
Yeah.
So, well, I've got a little different niche for you. A friend of mine, Brent Walker, had to look up what his book was called. He really had a passion for telling the stories of the homeless people around Atlanta and around the South. And the book's called The Hidden South, Come Home. And that was his thing. He really wanted to tell those stories. He'd go to under the bridges and ask their permission to take their picture and just talk to them about why they're on the street, what led up to it, what happened. That was his niche. Now he's doing a podcast about it and interviewing and doing audio. So these things is, what is your passion?
Well, exactly. And also, you're going to figure as you go along, length of the podcast, how long you can keep people's interest with it. And like everyone's saying, find a space where you feel comfortable being able to do this. Look at Mark Maron. He does his podcast in his garage, So, you could do it wherever you feel comfortable with. You said you were thinking about setting up a booth or something like that. You could do that, but then you just have to have certain type of people that fit your need for your podcast and everything.
Right.
You just don't want to have And now we have this person who's a garbage man, and this person who's a sales clerk, and this person who's a banker or something like that, because it's not consistent.
Mark has actually recently moved out of his garage.
That's right. He's upstairs in his.
Yeah, once you have the president in your garage, you got to do something better, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Upgrade, right?
Yeah, Jenna, what would you like to hear in that kind of podcast?
Honestly, I would like, in that sort of a podcast, I would like to hear from like elderly people, older people whose whole lives are not on the internet, and we're about to lose all of their stories.
That generations could be gone. real
Right,
soon.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, but I do think that is a beautiful idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one of the things I did, and just along that lines, what you just said, is even my own family, I've interviewed the whole stack and basically sat down with almost as many as 24 hours to get all these stories out and get them recorded. And that's kind of a family type of thing. These are never going to be published publicly, but along those lines, there's some ideas. I think there's some businesses out there that are doing that right now anyway.
Or
Yeah.
for an idea, maybe go to senior centers and something, and set up your stand there,
Yep.
like a little booth at a senior center, and have people come in there. Old people love to talk.
Oh,
they
yeah.
talk and
Yep.
talk and talk, and they have
It's-
so many stories to tell. I
it's
think
safe to
right
say,
there you have a gold mine.
Okay.
There's a lot of ways you can do this, so
Okay.
it needs
Thanks,
to be something that you're passionate about doing.
Right.
That's
Thanks,
the
I
key.
appreciate it.
Who's
guys.
up next?
You just go vertical.
Oh, Peter B. Parker, what up?
This is Mike. Oh, sweet. Hi. Okay, so I guess if I was gonna do it's this meets this for my podcast, like a summary of it, it would be Hello from the Magic Tavern meets horror movies, where it's basically a talk show where the hosts are. It's a fictional talk show. Where the hosts are horror movie monsters and they interview other horror movie monsters or people related to that, like a chainsaw salesman or
Okay.
like a werewolf or that sort of thing.
Would it be scripted?
I think improv is kind of the take I'd like you the guests and me and my co-host build the character ahead of time together and then just kind of improv from there was my idea.
I would say the one danger you're going to run into in improv is the fact that I would at least give yourself talking points.
Exactly.
That
Yeah,
way,
an
if an
outline.
idea starts to fade, you have a vine to swing on to and catch and immediately go to the next
That's what
one.
people like Christopher Guest and stuff does with his movies. Or there's a great podcast out there called Space Above and Beyond, and it's completely improv, but they have talking points where they have to get to for the story to get through to. And I think you're going to lose if you go completely all improv. You will go so down a path that you're not expecting, and you'll lose what you're trying to get, with it.
So do you have an improv background yourself?
I dabbled a little bit in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take classes.
Thank you. I was about to straight
Yeah,
up.
right.
Are you
I would.
are you
I would.
local, are you local here to Atlanta?
I would
or
friend some.
No, I live in Jersey,
in Jersey.
New Jersey. Yeah.
Okay, there's
We're sorry.
That's
Yeah, me too.
There's tons of theaters up there
Yeah.
that have improv classes. I would recommend doing that first before you go down this path, and you will be successful if you do.
Listen to other improv podcasts.
Yeah.
Either that or improving. I'm sure there's podcasts out there that will teach some of the art of improv.
There's not a lot of them yet, though. And
Really?
I still think that there's a big opportunity for improv and podcasting. It
Actually-
just hasn't been exploited yet.
If you go to the Walk of Fame here, Janet Varney is here
Yes.
as a guest, and she is like the queen of improv podcasting. And go talk to her; she will give you some pointers. and everything.
Sorry to step on you.
That's okay.
I'm going to take a little different point. Oh yeah.
Really?
I truly believe that the true nature of podcasting is you make, if you have an idea in your head how you want to work this, you've already kind of thought through this out, and you're in the shower and you're kind of coming up with ideas. Rob and I, when we do our show, we just go. We improv completely. Now we're not trying to do a storyline
Right.
or anything like that, but
It's
I think
a reality based.
it's reality based. So
I think that's just called a conversation.
right. It is. It is.
Well, we're
but
trying
but
to
at
make
the
it
same
sound more fancy
But
than
at the
it
same
is.
point, though, if you're going to do this, you can experiment. That's the beauty about
Yes.
podcasting. You can experiment, and you can find out if it's going to work or not in a few episodes. Because, like they said, do do a outline.
Yeah.
Make sure you do it far enough out that you can get to 20 episodes, so you have kind of an idea where you're going to go with this, and then just see what happens, because it may get to a point you're like, man, this really sucks. We need to change it. And the cool thing is, there's no rules. You can. So.
And you will change it.
But I worry about podcasters that have an idea that might turn out to be really cool.
Yeah.
That will say, I'll delay for 5 years while I go to improv school.
Yeah.
I said,
true.
The whole Nike
Tandem.
thing, just do it.
Pull the trigger.
Do it
Yeah,
tandem.
just
But
go.
also take the classes while pulling the trigger to help
Right.
you out.
And
But,
you're gonna see a marked difference from your first episode to your 20th episode.
Yeah.
Now, the point that I definitely agree with Todd is if you got it here in your heart, you got this passion,
Yeah.
don't let anybody talk you off of that, not even us. You know,
Right.
Try it, fail forward.
Yeah.
Try it, work it out. Go, oh, that didn't work, but tweak it. Don't just throw it away. Tweak it. Keep it with what you love. in there.
Are you a big fan of like horror movie monsters and stuff like that? Like
Yes.
to a nerdy extent, because I know with me, I'm familiar, but I can only off the top of my head. If you ask me to come up with episodes for that, I would maybe come up with 10. And my advice is always make sure you have at least like 20, 25 ideas, because otherwise you'll run out of steam very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not not the nerdiest, but I'm a big horror movie fan, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of it too is I don't know. I kind of want the guests to come on and build something they care about too. So I've
Yeah.
got like a list of like ideas. Like I've got like 20 different characters, just to kind of get the juices flowing. Or the guests can take one if they want. But
Why don't you record an episode then and see how it goes?
Yeah.
Do a
Definitely
test.
do that.
Do a pilot.
And I
Maybe
think that,
those characters can play different scenarios. you
Yeah,
know.
I
Maybe
love the
similar
idea-
characters playing different situations.
Yeah, I love the idea of it almost coming from a realistic place,
Right.
where when you see an actor on Jimmy Fallon or something, you see a different side of them. So as you see like Freddy Krueger or Dracula or whoever show up on the show, it's not them being like, I was going after this man. It's them being like, look, my wife is the worst. I can't.
So here's your first guest for your show.
yeah.
Hello, everybody.
the quirkier the better. Is that the right
Yeah,
word?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Take a note from Night Vale.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Welcome to Night Vale?
I listened to a couple episodes.
Okay, where it is a buck wild show, and everything they say makes no sense to you or me or anybody, but in that universe, it's real to them, and it's not them winking at the audience and being like, isn't this crazy? It's them just earnestly presenting, these are the facts of this town of Night Vale. So don't wink at the audience. Always make sure everything you're doing is in earnesty.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it, where the premise is they interview inanimate objects.
Okay.
And the inanimate objects become personified.
For the people on the stream,
Like a paperclip about the struggles of the paperclip's day and that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So
Yeah.
they're kind of on the same line of what
Mhm.
you say.
okay.
Make it interesting.
It's kind of nice to have a soundtrack underneath.
Yo,
this.
I am
Yeah.
digging this.
Yeah.
They are playing "Don't
Is it-
Stop Me
is
Now,"
this-
and I'm feeling my
Is
life.
this a pod safe music episode? Is this
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going through the microphones, but the Brit track is blasting karaoke behind us, and we can hear it. So who's next? Who's next? I think, right in front of you, and then,
And the young lady up here.
yep.
So I was thinking about doing a more professional podcast. I have a job that is somewhat
I'm out. I can't do that.
I have a job that's a little unusual because I'm in sales, but I'm also an engineer. It's called sales engineer appropriately.
How about that?
But
Okay.
the idea is basically I want to go figure out how all of my friends are good at their jobs, and then I would jot it down and then share it with the world. Not only to help grow the field, but also so that I could learn more things and steal other ideas.
So is this a solo show or is this an interview show?
This is an interview show with me and as many of my closest friends that decide to share their ideas.
Okay, so are they going to be rotating, coming in and out of the show? Because you say it's you and your closest friends, so...
Pardon. If you mean host, then it would be a solo host show, and I would have guests that would come in on each episode.
Okay, but do you have enough people to make a rotation? In other words, okay, you're going to get 10 in that you know.
Mhm.
How do you get to 50? How do you get to 100? Or do you recycle the first 10 back in? And I think you have to think about that.
Mhm.
Number one, do you have enough to feed this thing for a couple of years to see if it's going to take root? and then but you got to find something that's going to keep it interesting, because everybody's going to come in, and if they've went all the same classes and the same training things, it's going to get boring real quick. So you got to make sure that something new. And I think this is going to be a short one, don't you? Not a long. I don't think it'd be too long of a podcast. You got to get in, get the facts, get in and get out.
You mean like per episode?
Yeah.
This will not be a 4-hour take with me and my best friends. No.
No, but I can't see it going more than half hour, 45 minutes at the most.
Yeah.
That's a perfect commuting update.
Yeah, I can see
exactly.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Silicon Valley, so the idea that people need something
Okay,
to
maybe
listen
a
to on the
2-hour
101
podcast.
back-
Okay, yeah, hold on now.
But here's the beauty about this. You're doing this for you, and the audience is the benefit, right?
Yeah.
This is what most podcasters do. They do the show for themselves. The audience is the benefit.
You have to talk about things you would find interesting, and it's basically you're having a discussion to find out the information from these other business people and business leaders, and what you want to know. And like they just mentioned, the audience is the beneficiary of these questions you're asking to them, because you want to know that.
And I would also go back to like that specificity idea, because right now, just from what you said, the podcast idea I'm getting is I'm gonna talk to people who are good at their jobs about why they're good at their jobs. A lot of those shows already exist, so I would narrow that down. And a lot of successful shows like that already exist, which means that it's going to be a very flooded market. So the more specific you get with what your idea is, like I recently chatted with a guy. His show is very successful, and it's all about air conditioning repair, and that's it. But because of that, he is now like a legend in the world of air conditioning, because he decided to go very specific, and because of that, his show was able to blow up because it wasn't a saturated market.
I get it.
Yeah, because you can't really live off of your guests,
Yeah.
to grow your show, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot of different topics, and people are going to come in and out of your show. So what you want to build is some loyalty in that audience that comes to listen to you. So you need to balance that, so you keep the audience coming back every week. Because if you point too much at the guests, you're going to have in and out traffic on your listener base.
Yeah, I think find a connecting thread that goes through each episode if you are doing something while interviewing these people.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
Oh, I don't know.
I was going to talk, but if you think I should do something
Well-
else, like.
Well,
I mean, you need to be seen as an expert too.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's one thing. I can't remember who it was, and I don't even know if it's a podcast or an online series, but there's a video where like a guy it's a series where he paints a portrait of the person as he's interviewing
Right,
them.
like that.
So it gives you a little, you could keep the similar idea, but it just gives you an interesting angle to bring people in.
You totally want to make people want more.
Yeah.
The reason to come back each week to listen to the next show. And if you have like industry people specific to what you're doing and shows you're interested in it and such, the listener then gets riveted, and you're going to have other sales engineers coming in and listening to your show because you're going to become an expert in the field and you're talking to other experts.
I
Yeah,
hope
I
I'm
think-
good at what I do as well. But
I think
like,
they've hit on a nerve here is and I've always said this too, is if you're going to do about a specific content, you have to be the authority. The goal is that they want, when it talks about sales engineers, who's the guy to go talk to? You. You want your phone to ring, not a guest's phone to ring. So keep that in mind as you're building that content.
Yeah.
Because if you're not the authority, the goal is over a couple of years to become the authority.
Right.
And that is what the challenge with most people starting a new podcast today is they start at a certain level of authority in the content they know about. This is where a lot of content creators also make a mistake. They say, oh, it'd be cool to do a show about this, and they really have no knowledge or no background in it, and that show just will never go anywhere. But the key is to build your authority in the space.
So when it comes to interviews, the best interviews are more like conversations where you need to be able to interject your story that relates to their story. You can buy time on radio stations. And I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm leading to a point. And I hate driving home. It's usually after midnight. And I'm driving home. I just want to hear somebody talk and my phone's dead or whatever. And, hi, this is so-and-so with this hour. And it's like, Mike, tell me about your life. It's Mike. Okay, tell me about your book. Mike, why are you the host then? I can find Mike in the world. I want to know what you want to know about them and why. And when that story triggers, you're sharing it back with them, and they connect with you.
I almost think there's something appealing about doing a show where you are the exact opposite of an authority, though, and it could.
I'm not saying don't ask your questions, but
Well,
be able to share.
And it
Well,
could
that's
be
a different kind of show.
The entire
Definitely.
premise of the show could be like, help me out. I have an issue, and then them helping you throughout the whole thing, and you learning from
Help
them.
me help you.
Exactly.
Exactly.
There's your title, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your guests ideally need to add depth to your knowledge.
Especially
so
if you're
the
going for the
audience
whole
gets
professional
extended into a deeper level with a topic that is dovetailed off of your expertise. And so what it becomes is additive to you. You learn as well, and the audience learns at the same time. I've done that for years with the shows that I did.
Awesome. All right,
Thank
I
you.
believe this young lady. He's going to bring you the box. Hold on a second. No, it can be about anything you want to talk
Oh,
about.
yeah. Charles is slowly learning not to book me in a room right next to the Queen karaoke because I'm just.
I mean, we literally
So
have no idea what
distracting.
other tracks are doing when we book our stuff. So.
Somebody to love.
All right.
Alright, so my idea is more of a sitcom than an actual podcast. I've always been a nerd, but I didn't really discover nerddom and the community until I moved down to Atlanta. And just kind of focusing, it's called Nerd Girls, on being a girl, coming into this community and, online dating, body positivity, that kind of thing. It's really focused on me and my roommate as kind of like the basis for our characters because, like our first night we met at a Dungeons & Dragons pub crawl. There was a guy I had been talking to online, and he didn't recognize me because I was wearing a wig. And then the next morning she texts me and she's like, who's the guy in my bed? So kind of throwing off of stories like that and just kind of developing that. But I'm trying to decide the right medium to make something.
So it's like
that.
Broad City meets Big Bang Theory. I'm kind of.
Yes, but actually for nerds, not just making fun of nerds the whole time.
Girl, thank you. Thank you.
Right,
Bozingo, right, guys?
I think it's a great idea. I think
Yeah.
It's really good,
You're drilling in on a very narrow niche that has potential of a pretty big fan base. I think you just got to really connect with your audience at a deep level.
Do you have enough idea per episode to fill out like a full sitcom, like 22? Oh God, they're getting it in that other room right now.
Scotty, focus.
I'm sorry.
Focus,
Well,
Scotty.
the reason why I ask is because you brought up D&D, and I really like this idea of almost like those old school like women in a barbershop talking as they're getting their hair done, except instead it's D&D. So every episode is you going through a D&D thing, but then in the middle of it also telling like the story of when you went out to the pub and then woke up.
Dungeons
and
and Dragons and dishing.
Well,
Yeah,
so
right.
the more the idea of it is
Dungeons and dishing is the best idea.
Well, I did think about that, but then the problem that I ran into because I have like a whole arc for the first season, but I wanted it to be more about like, going out, like I said, I mean, every girl out there who's online dated has had some sort of crazy story.
Right.
And I
Guys
didn't-
too.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry.
And I was afraid that if I did that, I was marking myself too far in a corner, and then maybe bringing in a D&D like full group the next season, just so you're not introducing so many characters
Yeah.
in the first season.
So are you going to have guests? Are you going to have a regular team? Or is it going to be just you? What do you think?
Well, I think it's like mainly going to focus on like moving to the city, finding that apartment. There was a situation where we were at a con and, there was this one guy and it's like the whole thing. But I had went in there in the dark, didn't realize that he was still in the bed and, fell asleep that night because I didn't turn on any of the lights and woke up and he was still there. So kind of focusing on like little mini
Randomness.
stories like that. And then also about, just kind of going through the whole trope of like, moving to a new city, trying to find your way, and the growth that's involved. with
Sure,
that.
it's a story that you're telling. What were you saying,
Yeah,
Mike?
exactly. I was thinking maybe it almost sounds like you want it to be almost like a real life type sitcom type
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
You can make it, I think you should work on scripts and write out the story plots. Like we were mentioning with the improv, have points where you want
Right.
to be with it. And I think if you do that, I think then could figure out what kind of format you want to put it in. You could do it as a YouTube video series. You could do, so you could do it more affordably to start with, instead of having to pitch it as a TV show to one of the networks or something like that.
So are you prepared to open up about your own experiences?
I mean,
in
I
this
just did in front of a whole room full of people.
Yeah,
Right.
So-
I mean, no, but in the
Twitch
podcast,
channel.
I mean,
But you have to go more in depth.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
so you mentioned you do have an arc idea for the first season. Is it just moving to the city, or like, I mean, we're not gonna give away spoilers, but I mean, like,
I mean, it's about moving to the city, and then also like, it's kind of drawing off of my own. I'm getting way too deep here, but drawing off of my own experience a little bit of,
Okay.
having a steady boyfriend all through college, and
Right.
then coming into the world of dating.
Right.
Finding
So
those
it's
different
life
things.
stories like Girls or
Yeah.
Sex and the
Yeah.
City. those
Yeah,
kind of things.
very similar.
So with the medium, you could do all of it. Scott Sigler is famous for doing audio books, right? He wrote his
Yeah.
books. He put out the podcast form, which is tight, short, and then later the book actually gets printed. They talked about TV shows, those kind of things. I mean, Todd, right? You could start in the easiest medium, honestly, is audio to start practicing it in. And then you take it bigger, you turn it into drama. I mean, Jenna, what would you do
Yeah,
with this?
I definitely think that because you want to focus a little bit on body positivity, that a visual medium is going to need to be key. But I also think that you need to build a very hefty, good toolbox with taking, not necessarily paying for writing courses or anything like that. There's plenty of stuff for you to find on the
Well, I
internet.
also have I'm a major in journalism, and I do a
Awesome.
lot of
There
writing.
you
so
go.
that's you have a plus
That's
right
good.
there with
Yeah.
that.
That's perfect.
What
So-
about something maybe like do it if you want to do an audio thing? Do it like a diary blog type thing.
Well, originally it is like a TV format, and
Yeah.
that's what I have eventually in my head. But I know you
But
can't
do it as a
start.
do it as a video blog.
yeah.
though.
I mean, I know this is digital media where we're trying to be like YouTube and Twitch, but no, this is a TV show. Like, this is straight
It-
up.
it
And
is.
like,
That's how you get practice. How you get practice is starting with the easy
Yeah.
stuff and build
yeah,
up to it.
Yeah.
exactly.
well, I mean, I would call it late bloomer.
Here's something I would also take into consideration too is you're going to be talking about sensitive topics about you. You're going to be getting into your personal life. So I would heavily consider developing a persona and using that and making sure that if you do this initially, I would suggest audio to begin with. You can describe in detail what you're trying people to visually understand and not put yourself at risk, because there's a lot of mean MFers out there. All right, so just be careful from that perspective. I think podcast is a great medium to be able to really get deep and talk about stuff that people will like, or laugh. So I think it could go both ways, and then see what the kind of feedback is by people. And then if you want to take it visual, maybe at that point you've gotten enough feedback from folks saying how they loved it or hated it or whatever to make a decision if you want to move it visual. So that would be kind of my advice on this.
I
Because
just don't see how you would make this in an audio medium. I
I'm
mean,
sorry, have you not ever heard of audio dramas? Welcome to Night Vale,
Well,
Scotty.
Yeah.
There's good sides and bad sides to the.
That's true.
The,
Yeah.
the
And
whole
also be-
persona thing is that if you're trying to build a name for yourself, you're not going to be able
Well,
to.
I mean, I was going
right.
to give them different names and everything
Right,
in the
right.
drama,
Yeah.
and just
Good.
like drawing on the stories
Yeah.
that
You know,
come
Right.
out.
Because if you don't use real names at all, because you will lose all your friends, you will lose family members and such. I have a friend of mine who wrote
Depends how
a
far
book
down the rabbit
about
hole
his
you go.
family growing up, who grew up very
Keep it light.
dysfunctional.
Yeah. It depends on-
And
yeah.
he basically used some real names, or the characters were very identical. You might need to combine some characters in your life and such, so that way you can say, you can't have one person say, "Hey, wait a minute, that's me. I didn't do that," or sue you for slander or something like that, because you might be revealing some stuff in this that they don't want known out there. So just be careful. Protect
Yeah, I
yourself.
agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with disclosing other people. It's the choice you need to make about yourself, I think.
Right.
Is the big decision you got to make.
All right, who's next? Right here on the front row.
Toss it.
You got the entire studio in 3 boxes hauling around with you right there.
Other mediums, film, is that okay?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
I do a whole podcast about making dumb movies. Let's do this.
All right, cool. Son of a supervillain. The son of the most hated villain on Earth has to decide whether or not he's going to save humanity or turn against his father.
Wait,
Huh?
wait, is the son the supervillain or the dad the supervillain?
Dad's supervillain.
So the
Son-
dad,
The son of a supervillain.
right?
It's the son.
So he has powers because his dad's super.
Oh,
his dad's
okay.
super bad, and he has to decide.
His dad's Jonah Hill. I got it. It's super bad.
Right? He has to decide whether he's going to use his powers for good or evil.
Exactly. It's something similar to Runaways a little
So is
bit.
this going to be a short?
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Can I continue?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay. So it's a little bit longer. I got about 6 minutes. Late 1970s, right? Father supervillain is giving his son a bath, right? And he's all dressed in black. His son is like 3 years old, right? He goes, "Dad, yeah? Why do people think you're bad?" He goes, "Oh. Well, you see, son, since the beginning of time, man has had to fight lions and tigers to stay alive. They don't have to do that anymore. But because they fought for so long, it's in their instinct, it's in their blood, and they fight against each other. That's why I exist, because man will never survive fighting each other. They unify, and they fight me."
I think you already got it figured out.
Yeah, sounds like you got it down.
You've answered your own question, dude.
Yeah. Because it sounds like you're taking this
Okay.
great take on putting humanity behind the villain. We always see the villain behind the mask, and now you're seeing the human side of what goes on. I mean, I'm with it. It sounds like you actually know exactly what you want to do here already.
I appreciate it, but it almost seems like the villain's entire existence is to make the rest of humanity good. If I'm getting that correctly.
There's more.
Of course
Can you
there is.
come stand in front of the
There
camera and
better be
just tell
more,
everyone
right.
your movie? That's all I want.
Well, the best villains out there think they're doing the right thing, and it sounds like this.
So what's the actual question you have?
Yeah.
That, like, is it a good
Yeah.
idea?
Like, where do
or
we
what
go?
do you want us
What
to
do
help
I-
you with?
We have no money.
We're not investors. This is not Shark Tank.
So, well, when you started out, you said, "Throw us whatever you got.
Yeah. Sure.
Let us contribute. Let us give you your feedback." This is the first time I'm coming out with it, so it's like, okay,
Okay.
want to hear it. And it's not the medium of podcasting. I thought it was going to be open for everything, but it's like,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh,
let's
no,
try
it's
it.
new media. It's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there has to be an element of comedy to it because I'm getting vibes of like Dr. Horrible and oh god, there was another one about a villain, but I can't remember off the top. Megamind, but I don't think that one's what I'm thinking of. But yeah, I think there needs to be almost like a goofy element of comedy to it. Like, have you seen The Tick, the updated version?
Yes.
I would go with that kind of like dark humor to undercut everything, and like the superhero he fights against could be super over the top, happy-go-lucky nerd. That which makes it even like harder for the son because he's like, I don't want to fight with that guy. He sucks.
Or my question actually, as you're talking about, so the kid's raised by the father, and the father's spinning how he does things. Where does he get the idea that he has to choose a different path? And where does the conflict come in?
Next scene. Okay. We flash forward when he's about 6 years old. And he's woken up in the middle of the night. They're screaming in the
Goodbye
basement.
Yellow Brick Road is playing in the background of this scene. No, I'm scoring it in my head.
This is perfect, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
All
with
right.
Scotty
Keep
on
going,
this
keep
one.
going.
He goes down to the basement and cellar, and 3 of the henchmen take his father, and he just got back from a really epic battle, and they lay him out on a table. His blood is gushing off of his side, and he says, son, bring the people. And he dies.
The dad died? What?
The father
What?
dies.
Okay.
So what do you want it to be made out of? I mean, or made into?
I thought-
what
wait.
what form of digital media are you?
I thought he was
Film.
going up against
Motion
Just
the
picture.
film. Okay. I mean,
Yeah, I thought he was fighting the dad.
it could be
Yeah.
an audio podcast. There's no reason why it couldn't
Or is
be
he
an
fighting
audio.
Oh my God! Did the dad fake his death?
Do you want?
Spoilers.
So, I guess I think you've got a thought in your head where you want to go with the film. The question is there more than 6 minutes?
Well, yes. I wanted just to like finish it. First I wanted to see your interest, right? If like, okay, I want to hear more.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, all right. Because that's the
what
original
we're here
concept
for.
is like, okay, you want to hear 30 seconds. No, I want to stay for a minute. I want to stay for 3 minutes, or
So if there's 6 minutes and you've already got the next hour planned out, it's more than a film. It could be a whole. And I'm an audio guy, so I love to listen to audio drama. So it could start off. I don't know. Could start off as that, and then morph into the film, or I don't know if you do, because one would kind of spoil the other.
Well, if you're asking if the idea is interesting, I think we all agree the idea is interesting. I would listen to the audio drama. I'd watch the short on YouTube. If it really did, you got the funding or whatever, I'd watch it on big screen or streaming.
I mean,
it's definitely an interesting idea.
One advantage of taking it into audio first is it's almost like a trial
Exactly.
run of
See
the
what
concept,
sticks with
right?
it,
And if
see
you
what
pick up an audience, you
members
start
think.
building a community around it, then it's easier to pitch it for something.
Well, see, my
bigger.
response to that would be do the Deadpool route, which is make a 2, maybe 3, maybe even go up to like 6-minute clip, maybe the opening of the film, or just something showing off exactly what you're wanting to create. It won't. I can't get over it.
Scott, come on, you can do it.
I
You can do it.
can't.
You can do it. Go on, Scotty.
Stop it. But yes, that's going to be a lot cheaper than having to try to make a full film yourself, but it'll allow you to do what you want to do. You don't have to worry about like anyone at a studio telling you what to do. You can look at them and be like, this is my movie. This is what I want to make. If you want to make this movie, we can, but don't compromise on this.
Have thought about that route, so I don't know if this is feasible or not. I'm going to try it, right? I'm going to sell movie tickets for 99 cents
Okay.
for the first 20 minutes, first act of the film.
Yeah.
And then if I sell like say 100,000 or whatnot, I can do the first act of that, and then show that, and if people like it, $1.25 for the second act for the next one.
Yeah, I've
but
seen
the first
people
one,
do
the
similar
people that
things.
have purchased the first one, they can get the whole film for 99 cents.
Well, it sounds like you're making it more into like a serial right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just trying to build it in pieces with the
Yeah,
Exactly.
Build it in pieces. Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, if we make this much money, we'll continue the story on.
Yes.
Type thing. I don't think it's a bad idea.
I think it's a very good idea. And I will say, I know you were thinking, like, I don't know if it would be feasible to go to a studio or feasible or to do something like that. The advice I'm going to give everybody here, and this is the only inspirational thing I have in my head, you don't know what doors are closed unless you try to kick them open.
Exactly.
So, like, I mean, this year, at the beginning of this year, if you said, hey, by the end of this year, you're going to be performing at Dragon Con and also performing in Las Vegas and doing your podcast all over the world, I'd be like, no, those doors are closed to me. I can't do that. But I still tried to kick it open, and they managed to budge a little bit. So, yeah.
I thought they were cheering for the end of the song. All right,
Back row
Next
gets
song
it.
now coming up. Tiny Dancer, Elton John.
Yeah. You bust in there and are like, duh, duh, tss, duh,
All right, Scotty, focus.
All right.
All right, one more. We can do one more. Who's got one more? I see, a nice little couple here on the second row who talked to me earlier, possibly. Maybe no. All right. You don't have to. I'm just saying, random couple.
Awesome. Peer pressure right there.
Hi.
Howdy.
Hello.
Last year we went to this panel and
I remember you.
have a random idea floating around, and the biggest thing we took from it was, can you make it last at least 10 episodes with what you know?
I updated it to 20 this year. You see.
Yes, you're hurting
I took
me.
it to 50.
I actually say have 2 years planned, but
12 and a half.
Well, we started at 10.
No,
If
that's
we
good.
Can make it to, you said if you can make it to 10, then you can probably keep going. If you can't come up with 10, don't even start because it doesn't make any sense. Why
That's
buy
what I tell
equipment?
my
Why buy
students
all
all the
that stuff
time.
in?
Yeah.
If you can make it to
So-
10 episodes, there's a good chance your podcast is going to make it.
Yep. And one of the panels we were going to canceled, so we went out to dinner early and came up with 10 episodes.
Awesome. Congratulations.
yeah.
So, what's the general idea?
Let's hear it.
Well, this is the hard part because I do streaming and I have a persona when I'm streaming. This podcast would not be my persona. This would be me. It'd actually be us. It's actually based on mental health. So it's like a mental health in me. Here's the outing part. I have bipolar.
And I have ADHD.
Yes. And so the idea is...
Are you my parents?
That's what I was saying. It sounds like a perfect match. No.
That's one of our episodes, actually, on why we will not be having children and the genetics of having these things and passing them down to children. So we wanted to do different segments. Now, I'm a huge mental health advocate back home. I'm Canadian. He's American. So that's another episode is based on what's different in our healthcare systems. How does having a mental health issue in the U.S. differ than having one in Canada? What resources are out there? What are not? So in that
That's
idea,
just gonna make me so sad. But yes,
Yeah.
that's an important one.
But it is important.
it's a very educationally heavy type thing. We wanted to start with our first segment of being a check-in. How are we doing this week? Both bipolar and ADHD have huge, as we call it, adulting issues. Getting out of bed, brushing your teeth, getting out of your pajamas, you know.
So you're willing to go raw and just put what you're going through that week out
there.
Yeah.
You
for
will
the
find an
world
audience
to see.
instantly.
It sounds like,
And-
truthfully, it sounds like a gold mine, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really
very
think
much.
this is going to
And
work.
like you could even inspire like your listeners to send in their own updates. That way, everyone can have
Yes.
their own weekly check-in with you guys.
Well, what our hope is to put the first 10 episodes together and not put them out yet until we've reached 10. And then on the 10th episode, put them out then one at a time and start collecting the comments and emails and everything from that. And then have a section on the 11th episode on, hey, this is what you're interested in. This is what we can focus on because we don't have an 11th episode.
The
We have
show's
10.
the show's going to grow on its own, and what you start with one is not what it's going to be at 50. But I think what you're going to find that podcasting is almost cheaper than therapy, because
Oh, yeah.
you're going to,
Well, universal healthcare.
you know, well, not only that, but you're going to be talking about topics that maybe even the two of you aren't completely comfortable talking about at times. So.
Oh, we know we are.
Yeah, so I think what you're going to do is you're
fact
going
that I
to you're
even
going to do a little
said that I have
self therapy for
bipolar out
couple.
loud.
I think this is a this is a hit.
Are you talking about doing video or just audio?
Audio at first, transitioning into video in the future if it seems to be taking off.
I think
We also
I
want
think
to
you guys
invite
are doing great.
guests on. We were thinking maybe once every 4 weeks we could have somebody with a different illness than ours come in and do the same thing. We can do an interview with them and say, hey, what is it like to have OCD?
I got you.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
No, this is
And
this
stuff
this
like
is
that.
good.
We actually have people we know who have outed themselves to us saying, I have this or I have that. And I've had it on my stream where somebody's like, oh, well, I have to go to a therapist now. I'll be back. I need to get this for my bipolar. And I'm like, how do I show them support without outing my persona?
Okay, that's
And so
okay.
I actually PM'd her and said, if you need to talk about this, I'm in the same boat, but I'm not outing myself on my stream.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
PM me back. and
outside
forth.
the persona, how do you do it without outing them? And I think one thing you might need to consider is that safe space of anonymity. Maybe they write the story and you read it without giving their names. Or I know there's little apps and soundboards you do a voice disguiser where somebody wants to hear the story face to face with you, but they really don't necessarily feel comfortable putting it out as themselves.
Yeah, and definitely fake names if you're having guests on. especially because they would be even more stigmatized.
You guys got it.
No, it's okay because this. I want to listen to this. So.
Yeah,
But this is.
a lot of the
do
people
not
that we
hesitate.
have
No.
as guests, we know them by their persona names because we know them
Yeah.
through Discord and stuff.
And that's perfect.
And we could use that, or if they want, they could use their real names because people don't know their real name versus their persona. People that I have from my persona, they don't know my real name. They
Yeah.
know my first name because I have a second account and I put my name in there, and that was not supposed to happen, but I did it. But only a few kind of know my real name. And so I figure it's a safe place for me. I can put out my name on this, but not on that. Promotion then becomes an issue because I can't cross-platform promote without outing myself.
You'll find your
and
own
my
way.
persona.
Yeah.
The one thing you guys will have to, definitely make clear on your podcast is that you're not professionals
Yes.
Yes.
and everything.
Yeah,
That's one.
page 2.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
it says not doctors. What did we write?
And-
Just
and-
people sharing our personal individual experiences.
Exactly. No, and that's perfect
we're not
because
doctors, we're not
you don't want
professionals.
that coming back to you.
Yeah.
And it's great. And just emphasize that every episode.
Yes.
At the beginning, like in the intro,
Yeah,
we're just
that's- we have
we're just a
an
normal
intro page
husband and
that
wife
is-
couple. Something like that. I would
Rob,
say.
what's your 2 cents?
I think it's a good idea. The thing that I would caution is pre-producing too much, just in general. I think Todd alluded to that because it's going to evolve over time. So I wouldn't record much more than maybe a couple of episodes in advance.
Jenna, what do you think?
Yeah, I think ordinarily I would tell you not to rely on followers and listeners to drive your content, but I think that in this case you're going to have to. I think in this case they're going to come out in droves to
Yeah.
share their own stories, and I think that's great.
And I will say it's weird because it is a heavy topic, but I'd say keep it as light as possible.
Yeah.
Because as someone who suffers with like anxiety and depression, I know it's dark. You don't like it would be, it's like I've told my wife this many times. It's kind of like, oh God, what's the scary thing in the closet in Harry Potter that they do this
The
cast?
boggart?
Yeah, a lot of mental issues, and it may be different with you, but in me, it's kind of like a boggart. I have to put a happy face on it, or else I cannot live with it. I've got to change it into something goofy and funny and light, and so that could be kind of your ability of yes, we live with this and we suffer with this, but it's perfectly fine to take it and remember the lightness of it.
Yeah.
Look at the good things with it and everything.
Mhm.
I have a wife who has epilepsy, and we have to deal with that daily, and be able to. But you look at it and you laugh at the good things from it that come out of this, and not have to worry about Queen playing in the background.
Todd, oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, but I think you guys are on to something good. Just don't keep it heavy, because you guys have 2 different issues. But and you probably play off of each other quite a bit also, so I think that talk about that. Definitely focus on that part too.
Sometimes though, heavy's good because you're going to have listeners that are not dealing with this or trying to figure it out.
Some people don't want to admit to themselves.
Well, I feel like it's gonna naturally go heavy.
Well, that was gonna be my
So-
advice: is be you for that
Be you.
day. If
Yeah.
it's heavy that day, be heavy. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Never apologize for it. Just
That's
be
right.
real.
Be you.
Exactly. Just
We are
be
all
yourself.
carrying this on our shoulders. We don't want to put this responsibility on you, but be a show that helps put another hand underneath that shoulder to help hold it up for that day.
Another
Yeah,
form
don't
of
be
Have,
support.
scared of
a
emotion,
closing
of
that would
showing
be like
emotion.
an
I mean-
uplifting
Yeah.
thing that ends
Exactly.
the show.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's always a happy, this is what you can do type of thing.
So I tend to tell. I still have it out. I did a little mini series called Rock Got Up Podcasting about ask me a question and I'll tell the story, and I go for about an hour and a half. But I usually try to focus on even in the darkest stories of this is what happened, this is where I messed up or what happened to me, but here is what happened next, and that's where that hope comes in.
Yeah.
And if I'm in the middle of it, I'll say I don't know what's going to come next. I'm in the middle of it, so never be afraid to. But I like that you're going to kind of end with here's some hope at the end, even on the heavy one.
Go to the whole spectrum of the emotional experience and
Yeah.
the trauma behind it and the struggle.
Well, we had a page on our diagnosis because he was diagnosed as a child. I was diagnosed 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So I've had to live with it all this time with not knowing what was wrong.
So you were always wondering what's going on.
I had it all too.
And we figured we would cover that as an episode of what is it like to go through it without knowing.
So you've
that
definitely
unknowing, and for him to be diagnosed this whole time, and the stigma that also goes with that type of a thing.
Thank you. And you've definitely got something here. I mean, this is next year she might be sitting up here about Pitch to Pros, talking about how you develop your own show. Thank you for sharing that. I know you were a little hesitant, but that you need to get on that. Rob, where can they find you?
I can be found on Twitter at Rob Greenlee. Is a great place to follow. I spend all my time talking about podcasting, so that's the topic. And I also have a website, robgreenlee.com. And if you want to send me an email, if you're interested in learning more about podcasting, I can be found at robg@libsyn.com.
Jenna.
You
Sorry. Just tired. Jenna.
Don't be creepy.
Jenna.
Jesus. You can find me pretty much everywhere at Jen Chill or at JennaGary14. My podcasts are at Panelology and at Minds at Yerk, YEERK. Yeah.
Todd.
I'm Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter. And if you want to get a PhD in podcasting, subscribe to Rob's Nice Podcast at newmediashow.com.
I'm debating on making Scotty wait longer to leave.
Till the
end. Where can I find you, Scotty?
I am the champion.
Scotty, focus.
Okay.
Focus.
You can find me in this exact same room in 30 minutes doing the Radish of Dragon Con. They were in the exact same seats you were last year, and they got to come back and perform this year. And also, I know we gave you a lot of good advice for what to do in the future, but unfortunately, the world is ending tonight at midnight. And if you'd like to celebrate the end of the world, you can with me and my co-host Blake Tander tonight at the first annual End of the World party in this very room at 11:30.
That's awesome. I can be found up on Twitter at MikeFaber67. All my podcasts can be found at the ESOnetwork.com. And, definitely up on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Facebook, anywhere you find social media. And I'm always available if people have questions about podcasting. I'm going to be starting probably late fall teaching at probably Perimeter Community College.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and I'll be teaching podcasting.
And you can find me Rock Out of Podcasting across all social media. And most of my creative work now is at giantsizeteamup.com or charlesmcfall.com. Thanks for coming out. Please rate this in the app and let us know what you liked, you didn't like, and go ahead. Go. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sing it. We are the champions. We are the champions.
Yep.
No, I'm gonna go talk
It's nice
to
to have a
people about
soundtrack for
professional
once, though.
Also, we've got trading cards up here if you guys want them. It's got our names on it.